Your goals are alive. They are your goals, and they can take as much time as they need to grow into what you need them to become. Your goals are up to you on how much effort and energy you want to dedicate to them in order to get them to the finish line. Never, ever put pressure on yourself to hit a deadline that is not right when it comes to what you are hoping to achieving. When it comes to goals, give yourself a break. Welcome to Build with Rob. It is your boy, Rob Dyrdek, all the way live up here in beautiful Beverly Hills, coming to you from the Dyrdek machine. It's always nice to come back to the studio and shoot the show because I don't get down to the office that much. It's essentially now just a penthouse in the sky that has incredible views. I shoot a podcast in with all the curtains shut. You know what I mean? I haven't even figured out a way to capture the views for at least those of you who watch on YouTube, to see what it's like up here in the Dyrdek Machine penthouse office. It is always refreshing and nice. And I used to have live in the energy on the wall behind my desk because that's really what it felt like the moment I got into this place. It just felt like this is it. We're creating the future out of this building. And really, that's what we did. You know what it is. We love to systematically fuse art, science, and magic to manufacture amazing companies and life. That's what we're all about. Thank you to everybody that tunes in and listens. Of course, wherever you may do that, like, subscribe, connect with us. Catch us on social, leave some comments. You know what I mean? Talk about how you're living that harmonious, high quality life. Look, this week I've been thinking a lot about like how tough goals are to kind of manage mentally. You know what I mean? Because it's like when you set a goal and set a timeline and you don't achieve it, what do? You put so much pressure on yourself. Like you blame yourself. Then you start thinking like, oh, I may never do this. This may never work. And sure, if you're creating goals and setting milestones and you're not reaching those milestones, um, hey, it may not work. But the reality of it is you've got to look at goals as this thing that is much more alive than just something you wrote down on paper and need to achieve checkbox by checkbox in order to reach the next level or create the fulfillment that you're looking for when you've created that goal, right? Because for the most part, a goal has the same purpose. You are, creating a strategic plan for a future event to create an outcome that makes your future better. And I don't care if that's a company, I don't care if that's a health goal, I don't care if it's a financial goal. All of these things are, again, built to create a pathway towards a better future. And when you have really simple goals that you understand, that are much more defined, they happen easier and more often inside a timeline. But I guarantee you, no goal ever goes step by step perfectly. Even the super simple stuff, like, not like it's a goal you set, but, I'm driving down here today and the goal is to leave my house and be here in a half hour. It's like I know how long it takes. I know what time I gotta leave. I know when I get there, the entire process. Now that seems really simple. The odds of that happening, because I understand it. We know what we're doing. We're just going someplace. That's gonna be an easy goal to execute. Now, I got in the car and I didn't have gas. I'm like, oh God, man, what? So now it's a super simple thing that had something out of control, that I had to address, and now I go to the gas station, and I know it's adding extra time, but I realize that I have flexibility in what I'm doing, so it's okay for this goal to sort of evolve. Then I get to the gas station, and I end up, putting in gas next to a chatty Cathy. right? So what are we doing? Now we're chopping it up. This guy makes films. I'm talking about films. What am I doing? I'm already late, already behind. I'm at a gas station when my initial goal was just to be a 30-minute drive down to the studio to shoot Build with Rob. And again, you know, I made it here. I made it here on time. I wasn't that far behind, a little bit further than I expected, but executed the goal. Things happened along the way, and here I am. A couple unexpected things, but I'm still in the framework. I made it. I achieved it. That's like, this super basic version of like you decide you're going to do something and certain things happen along the way, right? And you've got to be flexible in everything because even the simplest and clearest and easiest goals are going to have things that disrupt them or change them slightly. And of course, it's never going to disrupt your belief in that simple goal. I never thought for one second I wasn't ever going to make it here. You know what I mean? So, it's the idea of how clean and easy that is to understand as it relates to how even the simplest things can be disrupted. Then you look at these finite goals or these more infinite goals like I want to be healthy, I want to be happy, these things that are ongoing and perpetual. Of course, those are changing and evolving. And what does that mean on an ongoing basis? You know that you're growing and wanting different things and all these different things. So those more infinite goals um just continue to change and evolve over time as you change and evolve and you try to get better and all these different sort of aspects. Again, super easy to understand where you could see a ton of change and an infinite goal and then a really, really tight, definite goal. Um, like you then understand like okay, there's little simple smaller things that can happen, but I'm talking more about these goals that really matter to you as it relates to creating and building projects, timelines for creating and building a business, these things that you put a lot of pressure on the expectations of the outcomes, right? Because that's the zone of creating goals that gets much more like what I'd consider like problematic as it relates to your self-worth, your mental health, and how your motivation and all of these different things, and a lot of times, like when you're younger, your ability to see further and be patient is man, it's way more condensed, and I saw this really interesting thing about how like, okay, if you're 25, you know what I mean? Like, you know, 10 years earlier, you were just like, leaving junior high to get into high school. It's like, how could you possibly look 10 years into the future? How difficult it is to see further the younger you are. And that's where a lot of that the patience goes away of the goals that you have to achieve. One of the big ones from my era was like, you got to be a millionaire by 30. You gotta be a millionaire by 30. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, this like pressure to everybody that looked at themselves as being successful, that if you didn't hit that mark, that you would basically be, you know, failing at life altogether, and it's cool when you say that when you're 22. It's way more hardcore when you haven't done it and now you're 28 and you haven't even figured out a pathway to even do it and you can't even save money. It gets a whole lot more complex, but the idea for you is when you're setting a goal, it doesn't matter what it is, you always have to start at the end and decide what the outcome of that goal is, and then you lay out sort of the pathway and the milestones to get there, and then you begin on the journey. As it reveals itself to you, you start again. You start at the end again, right? You start at the end again. You start at the end again and again and again until you don't have to start at the end again. That is the process in the beginning of setting a goal and allowing it to reveal itself to you. And the time that it takes to hit these milestones and to see the plan evolve and get it to the place that you're expecting it to get to, that timeline, man, you can take the best guess that you can at it, but you've got to give yourself the ability and the relief to yourself to know that that's going to be shifting. Because what happens is, as you are growing towards a goal, like you'll learn so much about what you're actually doing that begins to even shift what you want out of the end in the first place. And that then shifts the timeline, right? And sometimes something's way more difficult, and now that you understand it way more clearly, you see that, like, man, this is going to take so much longer than I realized. Sometimes it's the opposite, where it's like you really see an accelerated path to push this goal forward, because now you understand it and it isn't going to take 3 years. You can actually get this done in a year. It happens both ways, but you got to be open and be flexible to it. And, for me, like one thing that I've, had to stay continually flexible on is, even how I approach the machine mindset philosophy and the idea that I wanted to create a book. I just wanted to create a book. Like, after I went through the process and kind of got into what it would actually take to create the book and what the book would be about. What am I looking at? I'm like, okay, well, first milestone, got to hire the writer, then I'll start developing it, then hire a publisher, then it comes out. What's that going to take? You know what I mean? Get timelines from everybody, like, hey, that's going to be about a year and a half. You know what I mean? um that was like 2 years ago. I don't even have an outline that I'm satisfied with yet. You know what I mean? Like, that's how incredibly far behind I am with the goal of writing and releasing a book. I don't even have a finalized outline. 2 years later. Okay, 2 years. Man, really, probably over that. Probably a little bit, probably more than that, actually. Probably 2.5 years, And so but I don't sit here and think to myself, like, ah, man, like, look at, like, what you set out to do initially, and look how far behind you are, and, like, man, you're never gonna do it. You're never going to get there. Now, I would, if the idea hadn't evolved, if the vision for how and what I wanted it to become hadn't evolved so much, if I hadn't begin to grow and see how dynamic and much more deep that I actually want to create this project, I would probably be frustrated and start to feel like I'm never going to do it. Right? Like, it is what I've learned over the last 2 years, what I've began to understand as it relates to how much time I can dedicate to the deep thinking that it requires to do a project like this, and how much progress I can actually make. Once I got deep into developing it, I started to add the flexibility into the timelines, right? And not put so much pressure on myself as it relates to trying to get the book out. Because at the end of the day, I want it to be something that I'm like, that is timeless. And so creating something, like that is much different than, hey, I really want to get this book out so that people can see that I wrote a book and that I've got a philosophy that they should connect with. I have grown into the overall project of being much deeper. And as I began to build the framework, and began to really speak a lot about mindset stuff on um Build with Rob, and all the different interviews that I started to do, it's like, man, it really started to push beyond just a single book. It started to push into this bigger philosophy. Then it started to turn into, like, oh, here's all this content that I would like to create around it. And then, like, wow, this isn't just one book. I think this might be 3 books. And actually, the most important thing that I can do in the philosophy that I've been creating, which now went from 1 book to 3 books and 100 to 200 pieces of content, is I actually want to create the software that people can then use and apply the philosophy in a way that can, like, change their life. So, when it started out 2.5 years ago, I just wanted to like take what I've sort of created and lived through, that was the philosophy that is the machine mindset, and it expanded while I was trying to achieve the goal of writing a book into multiple books, into content, ultimately into a software. And so I don't look at myself as like, oh, you didn't look how far behind you are on the book. And looking at that goal timeline, I'm just constantly pushing it. But I track that timeline, and I have a master calendar that literally shows, when I would do the content pillars for the machine mindset, like when the transition to the content will happen, when the studio will be redesigned, and a new show about the philosophy is put out, when the first book outline will be done, and when it'll be written, and when it will eventually come out. I still map all of this out in a Gantt chart to show how the entire thing connects together, and there is an entire timeline with all aspects of this entire philosophy laid out, that I keep shifting. I keep shifting and moving and pushing out further as I work more on it and get clear and see that I need more time. I push it out even further. And to me, it is a different way of approaching sort of goal setting that doesn't necessarily require a definitive ending, that you must, like, do everything you can to hit the initial goal that you set out. I just think nobody um you know lays that goal down exactly, and then you go straight into the day by day, week by week, month by month, whatever the goal timeline is, and hits it. Sometimes, I think there are certain things that certainly is much easier to do. Um, and depending on the type of what it is. But when you have a bigger idea, more creative idea, a passion project, a something that you're trying to evolve into, a bigger idea in the future that you still have so much to learn about, to inform how realistic the plan that you created is, and ultimately the timeline that you created to get there, you've got to be incredibly, um, you know, like, good to you, to make sure that you continue to push those timelines around based off of what you know you need to actually achieve it. Now, you got to keep making progress, right? Like, you can't, to all the procrastinators out there, you can't just like keep pushing it out and pushing it out and pushing it out, or it's never going to be done. If you're not expanding into it and making it more dynamic, and it's becoming clearer to you, which in turn is motivating you even further, that will drive your patience, because now the plan's even clearer. Your understanding of how long it will actually take is even more clear, so you're working even harder, more excited about realizing it, because you have more belief that it's going to happen, and it's going to be in a much better way than you even anticipated as you've evolved and grown into it. That is when it's okay to continually shift and push your goals and your timelines. It is never okay to just set a timeline to set a timeline with no intent of ever doing it. You know what I mean? Like that idea that, like, oh, once this happens, I'm gonna go and do that, or I'll work on it for now. Oh, it's a little bit hard, man. I'm gonna do it next year. Like anytime you're in that world of where you make a decision when you're all motivated, and then use how difficult the actual goal is, or all these other excuses of everything that's happening in your life that is the reason why you can't achieve that goal, that's when you're using it as an excuse, and I think, it's a natural thing for a lot of people to do. A lot of people will set a really big goal and create a believable plan, and then when they see how hard it is, they'll keep pushing it and make all these excuses and stay uncommitted to the goal, and instead of pushing the goal because now they understand it better, they're pushing the goal because it's too hard for them right now based off of everything that's happening in their lives. That's when you're gonna build the habit of basically just never achieving anything. You know, like if you take the time to create a goal, and then as soon as you start to do it, you decide that it's better to push it out because you are not ready because it is too hard. It might be the wrong goal. It might be the wrong goal. But if you set a goal, and as you begin to achieve that goal and start growing towards it, you begin to see like, hey, much more complex, way harder, gonna take much longer to do. It is perfectly okay and the right thing to do to adjust the timeline. Especially if you have people that are connected in your world that are tied to the goal, and all of you are working to achieve something. It's really important that you continually give everybody clarity on why you're adjusting the timeline and how it affects them and where they should focus in the process, in order to ensure everybody around you that it is in fact still something that's going to happen and come alive and actually be achieved. And goals can get stale real quick, and a stale goal gets uninteresting. And when you lose interest in a goal, man, you kind of do this slow walk away, a quiet quit, if you will, on a goal, where you just eventually stop putting energy and time, and then you can finally say it's just not possible. That is a path that a lot of people take towards slowly allowing a goal to fade away, so that they have so many different reasons and excuses why it didn't happen. But make no mistake, don't put pressure on yourself to hit every timeline that you create. You be adaptable, and just know that the true goal is to get really, really good at setting goals and achieving them on an ongoing basis. That's really, really what you're trying to really, really get good at in your life, because everything in your life is a goal. You're always going to look out into the future. I would like to do this. What do I got to do that? You're going to set off and do that. And sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. You want to get to a place where you get really good at understanding how to create goals, how to create those timelines, and be more consistent with getting there on an ongoing basis. And if you do that more times than you fail, you're going to grow into an extraordinary life, no matter what. And then when you get there, you're going to be even better at setting goals and understanding the timelines and knowing when you need to adjust those timelines in order to continue to achieve that. And you just do that over and over and over in all aspects of your life. And you will, without a doubt, have a very harmonious, high quality life. Because what is it? That's what we're going for. That's what we're going for out here. At the end of the day, you know, a goal is a tool, and it is completely alive, and it is on you to constantly be adjusting, evolving, changing, and pushing, reassessing, starting again, and starting again at the end, and doing it over and over till you achieve it. And, that's what we want. That's what I preach to all of you. I want to see you do it with your life, your business, in any way, shape, or form, because at the end of the day, we're just trying to be happy. It's just trying to get happy. So again, take that pressure off yourself. Set those goals. Know that you're going to achieve it, and continually evolve as you get there. That's what it's all about. Again, appreciate everyone who tunes in and listens to the rants each and every week. Wherever you may listen to it, like, subscribe, comment, connect. You can find everything we're doing at dyrdekmachine.com. And for those of you out there wondering, what should I do next? You got to put a vision to where you want to go. You got to create the plan so you can get there. And then you got to actually try if you want to get there. Until next time, see it, believe it, do it.